Are you ready? Welcome to another episode of the Around the CFL podcast. Anthony here with you again, and we are at episode 100 and joined today by greatness for episode 100. He has won 2 Grey Cups, has been a 3-time CFL All-Star, 2-time West Division All-Star, 2-time East Division All-Star, a South Division All-Star as well, which we'll get into that a little bit later, and was elected into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame in 2006. He was also a head coach and general manager for a time too. So you can now find him every week, either on the panel in the broadcast booth or at CFL and TSN. It is my truest honor to have one of my idols and heroes as a kid, quarterback Matt Dunigan. Welcome.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, AP. Yeah, I was excited to be a part of the 100th and get a chance to talk about the CFL. Anytime I can do that, I'm jacked up. So looking forward to the conversation.
Everyone has their story about how they fell in love with football. Mine was Grey Cup 1990 when the Bombers beat the legendary Edmonton Eskimos at the time. That was my moment when I fell in love with football. What was yours?
And so that was 1990. You said that was Bombers beating the Eskimos. Was that the beatdown at BC Place?
Yes.
Yeah, that was Tom Burgess and
Yep.
and defense was like scoring points left, right, and center. That beatdown.
Yeah, James
Yeah.
Battle,
James West
or
and Greg
James
Battle.
West, Greg Battle, Tyrone Jones. Yep.
Yeah. I know those guys up close and personal. Yeah,
Yeah.
and in fact, James West, he and a player by the name of Johnny Robinson, who was an icon at Louisiana Tech, where I went to school. Johnny played in the National Football League for the Raiders as defensive lineman. Johnny hit me not into tomorrow or next week. He hit me so hard, I lost years off of my life back in university. And then James West was the other guy to hit me as hard as I've ever been hit before. And he didn't do it once; he did it a dozen times. That guy was a beast. But yeah. So my favorite moment, to get me involved in football, is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I was a young kid, I thought I died and gone to heaven when I got a Duke Wilson football under his Christmas tree. And I was a pig in shit. I was a kid in a candy store. I was happier than I'd ever been. And my dad was working 3 jobs at the time. And, the only other person that I had was my older brother. And we threw it around a lot and played kill the guy with the ball in the front yard. And my mom and Eve, was my backboard, basically. She would stop the ball some way and get it back to me. But just playing ball, growing up in the front yard with either Scott, my older brother, may he rest in peace, and my mother, Eve, and then playing with my buddies. I grew up outside of Cleveland, Ohio, in Bay Village on Lake Erie. And, it was myself. I can name you a couple of the guys growing up with, and that's going back to the 5th and 6th grade. Matt Stender, Matt Oakley, Ronnie DePero. We'd meet up at Normandy Elementary School, and we would play till the lights went out. Then we'd all run home. And just, we couldn't get enough of it. It was just the world that I grew up in Bay. At the time, everybody would walk to the high school games on Friday, walk right down in the middle of the street, and everybody would walk. Town was 3 miles wide, 7 miles long, and everybody would get to the stadium by walking. And we'd walk to the stadium every Friday night and take in the ambiance and the high school game that being played that night, and just fell in love with it. Grew up going to the Cleveland Browns games in Cleveland, going through the flats with mom and dad. They were packing briefcases full of liquor at the time, and we're following them, over the train tracks and trying to stay next to them and keep up. And, we just remember the what they call it, the dog pound and the old stadium there on the lake. And That's watching Leroy Kelly, Paul Warfield, Bill Nelson, and then I moved to Dallas, Texas when I was in the seventh grade, and then I became a Cowboy fan. I grew up 2.5 blocks away from the Cowboy practice field, so I was destined to love the game of football, and getting that Duke Wilson back under the tree a long time ago really set me off.
So you went from Ohio to Dallas, and then you went to
Hmm.
Louisiana Tech, like you said. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, how did the path to the CFL happen?
Yeah, Ray Newman. He was the U.S. Pro Scout for the Edmonton Eskimos, and Frankie Morris was a Canadian scout for him, and two icons in that organization. And Ray contacted me my junior year and introduced himself, and he said he'd be watching. I said, yeah, yeah, whatever. I had no idea. I was not thinking about that. I was thinking about um, being in the moment and just trying to be the best I could be at the time, and really didn't give much thought. And then after my senior year, we just got beat national championship, 1AA. We lost to Delaware at home. Keith Jackson was calling our game on national TV. It was downpouring of rain. We lost to them 17-0 after the game. After I threw three picks in that football game too, and I was interviewed in the Tech alumni lounge after the game, and they asked me, "What are you gonna do next?" I said, "Finish my degree and get a job." and and then and it seemed like it was the next morning. I got a call, and they told me that Ray Newman from the Edmonton Eskimos wanted to speak to me, and he was there. And I went and met him, and he said, "I'd like to set up a meeting in Dallas, like 2 days time." He says, "Can you get there?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll find a way." And I didn't meet Norm Kimball there in Dallas. And so, a buddy of mine borrowed his girlfriend's truck. We drove to Dallas. Crazy story going to Dallas. We're not. That's 4 miles. It's 4 hours away back then, right? And it was a blizzard, snowstorm, ice storm in Northeast Louisiana and Northeast Texas at the time. And we didn't get a half a mile down the road. We rolled his girlfriend's pickup truck, rolled it, and I mean, humble, and luggage is flying everywhere out the back. And Barry and I, we weren't hurt. We were stuck in our seatbelts upside down, kind of like. And our biggest thing at the time was we were chewing tobacco, and none of us built our spitters, and so we were like, yeah. So we got out, flipped the truck over. It was smoking because a little, oil gotten on the engine, and threw the suitcases back in and made our way to Texas. I negotiated a contract back then with my dad, Norm Kimball, and it was crazy times, Stimper times, no nil, no transfer portal, just
Mhm.
latched onto opportunities, and I took that opportunity and ran with it.
You entered the league right after that, and you were the backup to Warren Moon. What was it
Yeah.
like to work with Warren Moon as a rookie? And then he went on to do amazing things as well.
Oh my God, Warren was just getting started. Yeah, I went to Edmonton, had no idea. Basically you land in Red Deer, and and then you got to drive, to you feel like the North Pole, and then you come over the valley and the river, and you see Edmonton, and you see the city. You go, oh, okay, there's civilization is here, and because you're thinking as an American, really, I was ignorant, like many people are still to this day. That's 41 years ago. I rolled up in there and I just had no idea what to expect. I'm thinking a whole lot of ice and snow and and polar bears and igloos and sleds and rods, and I was just it was pleasant, surprise. And I found myself sixth on the depth chart, learning a new game in a new world in a new country, city I'd never been before, and I was just a little overwhelmed. But I got down to it. We had practice at Concordia University, and the team had just won their fifth consecutive Grey Cup in a row. Not going to its fifth Grey Cup in a row, but winning its fifth in a
Hmm.
row, and that's what separates and distinguishes and puts the conversation to rest as to is Winnipeg considered a dynasty right now? And no, no, because going there is one thing, that's excellence, right? But to win it 5 years in a row, that separates you apart, and you
Hmm.
become the greatest dynasty in the history of Canadian Football League, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm learning from those guys, and I had a lot to learn, both on and off the field. Warren didn't teach me too much. I was always watching him, and he was very quiet, and we didn't communicate too much. I just watched him, trying to take in everything I could, both on and off the field, how he handled himself, and he did that extremely well. And then I had a whole bunch of other wing nuts teammates, to learn from and to, kind of fit in. But I guess I fit in because we had this. I mean, I got so many stories about that football team in my first 5 years in the league and the indoctrination that I got, from practices to the jokesters that we had in our football team to Tutu's Gay Palace to what was going on in there every day after practice. And it was just, it was a veteran kind of like little room, pool table, makeshift bar, and just enough room for a lot of guys, 30 of them, 40 of them, to get into trouble after practice every day, run down 10 minutes, 15 minutes before meetings started, shovel down as much food as possible, and then roll into meetings half glowing, with a full belly and with a smile on your face. And so, that's the way I learned the game. I learned watching Warren what to do. I learned from those guys, a lot of policing and of oneself and how to and how not to. But it was a tremendous opportunity for a young kid that had no idea what he was getting himself into. And the Edmonton Eskimos, my roommate, Steve Cutter, Neil Lumsden, Brian Kelly, those guys, they taught me a lot about the game in of itself and what it takes to be a professional. And then, I can name you every one of those guys in that football team. I'll spare you that, but every one of them had an influence on me. And, from Hector Pache to Eric Upton, may he rest in peace. We just buried him at the start of this past football season. A great
Hmm.
friend of mine, he and Nancy Upton, just wonderful people. Rod Conop and Lynn Conop, Blake Dermott and Cheryl. Cheryl stood up for Kathy as we got married in 1984 in the green and gold room overlooking the football field in Commonwealth Stadium after practice. So, there's so many things that, I just layers upon layers upon layers of tremendous stories and times and education as to what it takes, what life's like, and what was like back in the CFL in its heyday. And to me, I was very lucky to be a part of it.
You won a title in 87. You led the team after Warren went back down south and he
Yeah,
did what he did out in Houston and everything. And then,
yeah,
as part of the alumni, and we saw that the Eskimos changed to the Elks. We also
yeah,
saw you this past season for the 75th anniversary
yeah.
of the team. You were there with everybody. It was on TV. What are your thoughts on that name change? Because there's a lot of people, I guess it's a bit of a touchy subject, of course, but
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I just think it's crazy that we even having this conversation that they had to go to a name change.
hmm.
Yeah. So I think you can kind of guess where I'm leaning towards.
Yep.
I just think it was a time that everybody was on high alert and their emotions were, everybody's trying to say the right thing and do the right thing and not piss anybody off. How about just doing, knowing right from wrong?
Hmm.
How about just being courteous and respecting people's thought processes? But the pendulum swung way too far to one side,
Hmm.
and I think it was a very difficult time when the world was on edge, still is,
Yep.
and trying to find itself, and yet the important things of, uh, of principles and God, and in this order, God, family, and friends. Those principles have been lost for the most part, and it seems to be all about me, me, me,
Hmm.
and to me, that's the time that we found ourselves in when they made that name change. And I think it was a voice of minority that spoke, and people adhered, and then it became. And I think the organization at the time was certainly in a tough spot financially already back then.
Mm-hmm.
And when they found out that the sponsor and it was going to pull its money, they needed that money, and so they adhered to a potential name change, and then it happened, and it was. I think it was almost a curse that was put on that organization.
Yeah.
And I don't mind it,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't like the disrespect to the history and the name in itself, because the name was a positive um, reflection on Inuit and their culture, and I think it signified toughness and strength in the most outrageous conditions, and I think that that's what the Eskimos were all about, um, and they lost it, and now it's the Elks, and I hear that might go back to the EE logo,
Yep.
which makes complete sense. They never had to lose that in the first place because it's the Edmonton Elks. You get the same
Yep.
thing, EE. I mean, but I think that's going to be the compromise moving forward. But at the end of the day, um, you can't get too wadded up about
Mm.
something of that nature.
Yeah.
Look at what's going on with the Commanders here in Washington, in the States, and they're talking about going back and to the Redskins, and there's a handful of organizations professionally that have done the same thing and have kind of uh, uh, bowed to the pressures of, I think, minority of people for a
Mm-hmm.
number of reasons. But yeah, it's a touchy subject. One I don't mind addressing. I have my opinions on it, and I'll tell
Yep.
you straight up. I think it was a mistake, and because I thought the name bode well for the Inuit, and the organization, I think, lost its way after that,
Mm-hmm.
and was losing its way for a number of reasons behind the scenes, financially, and the structure, and I think the turnover at the top was not good for the product on the field. And believe me, it is connected. It is all connected, and it's been a tough run for that fan base, and I like where they're going now. Uh, I do. I think Rick Lawler's making some good moves. I mean, I'm not, with Ed Hervey coming in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
I know Ed's had success there in the past. I think with the new head coach, it's Chris is going to be outstanding, and I think he certainly got following and some credentials coming in from what he did at University of Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Coach Morris is going to be good, and then with Mark Killam coming up from Calgary, I think that might have caught a few people off by surprise. But I've known Mark for 21 years, and I I believe in him. He's a good human being. I don't pretend to know him as a coach. I know he's been there with the organization for the last 20, and he's worked his way up and he's earned the opportunity. And I just hope it's the right fit for the organization moving forward.
I think it's gonna be, and yeah, we're gonna get into all of the today stuff a little bit later. When you
Mhm.
left Edmonton back then, little known fact, you tried your hand at Major League Baseball as well, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, we got our butts handed to us. Um, Let me see. 84, we lost to Winnipeg in the semifinals. 85, same thing. 86, we go to the Grey Cup and we faced Hamilton, who had been there the two previous years and lost. And so they quickly beat the snot out of us in 86. And then we worked our way back in 87. And, I got knocked out in the second quarter, and Damon came in and introduced him the world in Canada, and never looked back for the next 21 years. He played 23, and that was his second year in the league. And he said, "Hello, Canada," and he was around for a long time doing his thing, and he did his thing for us in '87. And after that year, I was a free agent. And I'd already been, and during the off season, I was working out with Orv Franchuk. He was the California Angel Pro Scout for all of Canada, and Orv was stationed in Edmonton, and so I knew him through Mike Barnett, Court Sport International. Mike Barnett was Wayne Gretzky's agent,
Mm-hmm.
and he was also mine, and so he put us together. We've been training for three and a half months during the off season down at Kingsman, inside, because you can't train outside in Edmonton that time of year. So he got me a chance, supposedly with California, and they reneged at the last second. And he was upset with the organization because he had put so much time and effort into me, and he saw some value in what I was bringing to the table. At 27, I could throw, I could run. I just haven't been able to hit, and because I hadn't played organized baseball since high school. And so that's, we're talking 9 years. And so I just felt like, okay, 5 years, been to two cups, we won one, it's 27. Let's change the course of events here. And I think back to the time, it was kind of a thing, it was going on. I think players, professional athletes were kind of doing both, and I think I was at the beginning of that with that mentality and testing the waters and other sports. But it was, I think, one, bravado, I think, confidence in your abilities. And I just thought I could play baseball a lot longer. I could football.
Mm-hmm.
And so my wife was pregnant with our first son, who's now just turned 36 years old. And at the time she was pregnant. And I told her, baby, Orv has got an opportunity for me down in Lantana, Florida. It's an open public tryout with the Montreal Expos. And I said, I think I'm going to go down there. And she's, oh, yeah, really? I said, yeah. And so went down there. Long story short, made the single A baseball squad, one of two guys from 133 guys on the street. And I was just tickled to have the opportunity. Went through spring ball with them, hit a little over 300 in spring ball, and felt like I was right there when I needed to be. Just needed some more at bats. And but the guy at the time, the man that was running the ship, I'm trying to recall his name. It'll come to me. Long story short, he fired me. And he said, yeah, Matt, I see what you're doing here, but bottom line is we feel like you're too old. They got 18-year-olds going through the organization. I was 27 at the time, and I'm going, come on, man, give me some more at bats. And it was Dave Dombrowski. You should know that. Yeah, Dave Dombrowski. It's a pretty big name. He knows a little bit about baseball. And to get shit canned by him was pretty funny, but you're looking back on it. But he knew what he was talking about, and I just felt I just wanted more of an opportunity. But he had given me one, and didn't work out, so I reinstated and promptly got traded to the BC Lions, 6-for-1. And my wife stayed in Dallas, where he had relocated at the time, and then Dane was born in July, and that was right during training camp. Started training camp for the BC Lions. And I left training camp to go down there for the birth of my first son, and then started my CFL career all over again in 1988 in BC.
Yeah, you were traded to BC, which I'm assuming had a lot to do with that young kid, Damon Allen. Um, but when you went to BC, the franchise was
Yeah.
kind of in a weird, like not really a turmoil, but they were in kind of a weird spot. What was your time like with the Lions in BC back then?
Well, I mean, you mentioned Damon in '87. I wasn't shying away from competition because I felt like I was the best on that team. I just got injured, and he had done the deal, and they felt like I was expendable. Plus, they had Tracy Ham in the mix too that year in '87. So
Right.
they had two Hall of Famers waiting in the wings, and they felt like they could move me 6-for-1 to BC. I'd go there. We go to the Grey Cup, and it was tremendous. I just loved Vancouver. How can you not? And
Yeah.
then playing at BC Place, we had a packed football team, and we were putting 45,000 people in the stands, if not more, and we were lighting it up. It was one of the highest scoring football teams in the history of CFL, and Adam Rita was our offensive coordinator, and we just mashed. I got introduced to a young kid out of the University of Illinois, David Williams. My favorite receiver of all time. Over the next At that point, let me see, I was 88. So the next 8, 9 years, David and I basically played together, and he was incredible. I think he was rookie of the year and most outstanding player of the year, I believe, that year in '88. He was just he saw it like a quarterback. He's tremendous. We had tremendous football team, offensively, defensively. Louis Pasaglia, obviously, doing
Mm-hmm.
it in special teams. It was just we were loaded, and we went there and lost to Winnipeg and Ottawa 22-21 in '88, and that one still, sits with you wrong. So it was a good year. And then '89 happened, and we had turnover at the top. Joe Galette comes in. Larry Donovan was fired. Joe Galette comes in, thinks everything's gonna be okay, but then they hire Larry Kaharchik and Joe Cap as our coach, and Joe Cap and I didn't see eye to eye together, and I was, it was he told me to do something. I said, Coach, I can't come see you. I've got an agent for that, and he'll
Mm-hmm.
talk to you. And he insisted I come down to the stadium and talk to him. And I said, Coach, I can't do that. I swear I have an agent. And I said, it's not disrespect. And he says, and he hung up the phone on me. And then he called me back. And he says, you going to get your ass down here or not? And I said, Coach, I've been down this road. I already said it. My agent, Ron Perrick, he'll speak to you on my behalf. And he hung up he hung up the phone again. And next thing you know, I'm being traded to Toronto, 6-for-1. And it was like, okay. I was about to sign a 10-year. My wife and I, Kathy, we loved the city so much. We were trying to negotiate a lifelong contract, a 10-year deal in
Oh,
BC at the
wow.
time. So it would have kept me there. But Cap and Carge, they saw otherwise. But it worked out. I went down to Toronto, and they brought Doug Flutie into the league. And that was
Mm-hmm.
pretty good for the league, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Has he ever
yeah,
thanked you for that?
yeah. No, he doesn't think along. He doesn't think along those terms. But yeah, he just dominated when he was up here. So and
Yeah.
everybody loved him. He was perfect for the game. But it was crazy time in the CFL.
Another crazy time during that was, you just mentioned when you went to Toronto, because that is when the legendary comedian John Candy, Wayne Gretzky, Bruce McNall, I think that was in your second
Yeah,
season in Toronto when they purchased the team. And then,
that's right.
of course, bringing in a lot of noise with Rocket Ishmael as well. What was it like in that team? Because, I mean, you have this crazy ownership group that comes in. You've got Rocket Ishmael coming in, but there's already you and Pinball there, and that's just naming a couple. Like that Argo team was stacked. So, what was it like there with all that noise, everything going on, and playing in Toronto? And really, you dominated a lot in Toronto.
Yeah. One, we had Don Matthews as our head coach. Man, he rests in peace. One of the
Mm-hmm.
greatest of all time. Adam Rita was the offensive coordinator as well. And that team was loaded in 1990. That was the best football team. A lot of people say, bar none,
Yeah.
that never made it to the Grey Cup back then. And and then '91 happened. Teams purchased by the three you mentioned, McNall, Candy, and Gretzky, and it was a euphoric time in the CFL. Like we used to, Edmonton with Dwayne Medrusiak, it had nothing to do with Dwayne. It was just we had to beg for a new pair of socks, and 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 that's the world that you grow up in, and then you get these three owners that are paying Rocket, over $4 million a year, um, and throwing glitter and glitz and bringing in Hollywood stars left, right, and center, and everybody's in your locker room like you see in today's game because
Mhm.
they want to be associated with it and the experience. And it was just incredible because it's not what we knew and you knew is at the time. I was 83, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and yeah. So I'm basically my ninth year, and now this is new, and it's like whoa, it was crazy. Those guys were they really cared about the football team. John Candy in particular. John lived, ate, breathed it. He was all in, and it showed. And what you see on TV with John and how he was and the connection instantaneously that everybody had with that man, it
Mhm.
was the same thing in real life. He was the same way. He was just as real as the day is long. And of course, Gretz is the same way, right? Wayne
Yep.
has never changed. He's always been that way. And John, was an extension of that. And then Bruce, he was just happy go lucky and living high on the hog. He owned the Kings and he had Gretz down there, and Wayne was part owner here, and John is loving the team in the face of it. And then you got Raghav Ishmael taking over. He was basically a shield and an umbrella for all the talent on that football field because whenever we went somewhere, Raghav was there, and that's all anybody wanted to talk to. Talk to Rocket, talk to Rocket, talk to Rocket. And we had a group of all-stars from top to bottom on that football team. And we didn't have any pressures of answering or fielding any questions about this, that, and the other and trivial crap. We just went out there, had a good time, and played football, and it was an incredible experience. And then for it to end with a Grey Cup championship, it was storybook stuff.
And you won it with a broken collarbone too, didn't you?
Yeah, it was broken in three places. Yeah, and that's another story in itself. It was just I broke it for the second time that season in the West Final, putting a beat down on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the East Final at our place, and it was 33-3 at half, and second to last play before the half, I got hit and landed on, and I broke my collarbone again on my throwing arm, three places right in that joint there,
Hmm.
and it was like, oh, I'm done, and the next 8, 9 days was just a bit of a nightmare and a blur because there was a lot of indecision, not knowing, and a lot of pain medication, Xylocaine, Marcaine, adrenaline,
Hmm.
just a lot of consternation between everybody from top to bottom in the organization, including my father and my wife. And Kathy and I told her today, if I play, I can't play another down, I'm good, but we had to figure out whether or not I could or not. And so night before the ball game, 7, 8 of us were sitting around a round table and decided, well, there's only we got one more thing to do is see whether or not you can throw. And they shot me up there right in the ballroom at Sheraton down in Winnipeg. And the things I mentioned, Valocane, Marcaine,
Hmm.
and some adrenaline. And it wasn't pretty. It was real ugly for the first 15, 20 minutes. I couldn't throw a ball 15, 20 feet, and then maybe, 15, 30 feet, and then 30 feet when it was 60 feet. And I was 30 feet, and I was 30 yards away, and I was, putting some zip on it. And okay, I can do this. If we can get the same type of concoction going tomorrow, uh, yeah, we can make a run at this. But who in the right mind, when you look back on it, Adam Reed, our head coach, who you got Ricky Foggy as your backup quarterback. The guy
Yeah.
lights it up every time he comes on the football field. Why would you put me out there with a broken collarbone on my throwing arm? And Adam thought it was the best thing to do, and he says, "If you want to do this, Matty, I'm behind you." And I guess he's thinking if things don't work out, if things go sideways, he can always throw Ricky in there because Ricky always produced for us. But I look back at that decision that he made, and it was just like incredible. Why in the hell would he have done that in the first place? But it turned out. I mean, we played like crap offensively that game. I'm telling you, we had 9 first downs in that football game. 9, the whole game. That's a
Hmm.
good drive in most games, right? We
Yeah.
had 9 first downs the entire game. Defense, Ed Berry gets a pick six right off the hop. And Ragam takes one back to the house. I throw a couple TD passes to Paul Masadi and DK Smith,
Hmm.
and may he rest in peace. It's just we had yeah we it was a life lesson for me, and lesson of playing the position that I played, because oftentimes I think I got in the way of myself as a quarterback, and I
Yeah.
tried to do too much in those games, and I could really never figure it out until really I was compromised to the point where I couldn't. I couldn't do much. I
Hmm.
just had to let the team flex its
Yeah.
muscles
Yeah.
and do its thing, and that happened on that day.
If you could go back, would you play again in that game?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because all the decision, all the consternation, the angst that we're all feeling, leading up to it, and all the questions, and there was nothing that we were trying to hide. It was
Yeah.
just no decision was being made, because you had to get to the point where it's giving you as much opportunity to heal as possible. How do you heal a broken collarbone in 3 places in your throwing shoulder? How do you do that in 7, 8 days? You don't.
Right.
So it was just a matter of, Ricky's taking, practice reps all week long. And it was, it was, it was, yeah, would I do it again? I'd do it the same way. And who knows about the outcome, but that team was unstoppable. And it was a carryover from 90 with the addition of ownership, better owners, and from top to bottom, and all the glitter and glitz they threw at that club, and for it to turn out that way, and for the team to have a team win like that, win the championship in '91 the way we did, it was just that's what that's what legends are made of. And that
Yep.
football team is just top to bottom filled with all stars, guys that can carry a room by themselves, top to bottom. Any one of the guys that in its name one, from Carl Bracely to Chris Gaines, to Rodney Harding, to Don Moan, and to Ed Berry, to just incredible people. DK Smith, David Williams, Pinball Clemens, to our offensive line, from Kelvin Prinster to Ian Backstead to Chris Schultz to Dan Ferrone, Bob Skimp. Those guys are just, every one of them had personalities bigger than the Sky Dome, and they could carry any situation on any given day. And we just had a chance to breathe and relax and have fun, enjoy the game, because Rocket, he took it all on him, and he was incredible at 21 years old. What that kid did that's one of the most incredible seasons and rookie seasons I've ever seen anybody have, because of what he went through.
Was it mutual, I guess, to part ways with the Argos?
Oh no, it
No.
wasn't mutual. It was like, are you kidding me? I risked my career for this, and then Mike McCarthy wants to, he wants to negotiate a contract on pay per play, and I'm like, that's never been done in the history of the game. You out of your mind?
Wow.
You can pull a hammy in practice, and they're not going to pay me. It's saying no, 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 we're not doing that. And yeah, I was free, and I got a phone call from Cal Murphy. I'm actually in a tanning bed, somewhere I think I don't know where Kathy and I were, in Oakville, and I'm laying there in the tanning bed, and the phone rang. I lifted my head up and banged my head on the top of the tanning bed and grabbed the phone, and it was Cal Murphy, and Cal goes, "Buddy, Cal Murphy." He says, "How'd you like to come to Winnipeg Blue Bomber?" I scrambled out of that bed, and I'm sitting there on the side of it, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm listening. This sounds pretty good, and along next thing I know, I'm in one of those I don't know, it's probably 8, 9 days of chaos with a bunch of friends at the time at Andrew Murray's stag party, and he made a mine, and we had started somewhere in Ontario where he's from, and had 2 or 3 days there. Ended up in on the east coast of Florida for like 5 or 6 days, and all the time that's going on there, I'm on the phone and with my agent and negotiating a contract to become a Winnipeg Blue Bomber, and that's how I became one. And it was, sometimes you got to let it go,
Hmm.
and I let it go for sure because I was not happy because I was being told by a lot of people in that organization, about the effort and the what it took to play, and just the sacrifice in that game. And I was all in. It wasn't something I was just doing for that organization. It's just the way I played the game. I killed the guy
Right.
with the ball in the front yard, right? Just like I was doing it in Bay Village, Ohio. It was just, hey, let's go do it. And so it was like, it didn't matter to me. It's like, you don't want me here. You can do that. You can play those cards. I'm out. So I signed in Winnipeg, and for the next 3 years, never looked back there. Yeah, it was an incredible time there.
That was an incredible time. So when I was a kid, that's where I was in Winnipeg when you signed. And
Oh, okay.
I remember when they announced that you had signed there, and just the city went insane with Matt Dunigan coming to Winnipeg.
Yeah. I was, you know, I, I learned in a hurry, in Edmonton, about the business side of things. And then when I went to BC, and then how volatile the business could be. And after 2 years going to Toronto, and then laying on the line in 90 on that football team, Don asked me if I could play with a pulled hamstring that had no business playing. And it says, we got 3 games left in the regular season. We win one, we secure a playoff spot and home field advantage. Can you play? I said, you want me to play? I'll play. And, this type of mentality. He says, yeah. And so I just put a little more duct tape on it and blew it up and tore it up even more. And I missed the rest of the season. So, you're willing to do whatever. And then 91, playing with twice with the broken collarbone in that season, and finishing it. It was just playing football. And
Yeah.
I didn't give a crap what color uniform it was or what it was said on it. I was just playing a game that I loved to play and learned to love to play. So when Winnipeg happened, it was like, let's go. I always thought that football team early on against when I was in Edmonton, it was just hard nosed football, right? It was just, that field there at Kennedy Stadium. It was just nasty, right?
Yeah.
And I like nasty, and that's the way I played the game. And so I felt like I was a good fit there in Winnipeg, and I took my level of play or my style of play to that city, and it worked out really good. 92, we go to the Cup, we lose 24-10. I got pulled in that game. Danny Mack was my backup, and he ended up finishing that game because it wasn't my day. Again, I
Hmm.
was probably trying to do too much, but there's a lot more to it than that. But we lose that 92, 93. Um, I blew an Achilles week
Yeah.
like 16 or 17,
And that was
and
a career year for you too in 93.
yeah, we were rolling pretty good. We're scoring a lot of points again, and Mike Kelly and I were really meshing. Offensive coordinator, one of my best friends to this day. We just had a stacked team, great deep special teams. We're talking about Bobby Cameron, Troy Westwood, special teams guys that were just incredible. And defense that was just relentless, and an offense is just firepower. We could beat you in so many different ways, inside, outside, with the running game. We do whatever. And we had a team there in '93. We beat Edmonton that year in 2 games, like a combined score of like 120 something to 23 in 2 games. We just destroyed them. And then in the Grey Cup, they beat us 33-23, and we turned the ball over 7 times. And I'm standing on the sidelines watching this team that we owned that year beat us. That really stuck with us. And so what I'm leading into is what happened in '94 when we saw them for the
Yes.
first time. That same football team is this first time we see him since the Grey Cup, and I'm healthy all season long. I've been all off season. I've been rehabbing my blown Achilles, and I'm chomping at the bit. And we got to get going because I think we had dropped a game in DC, and now we got Edmonton at home, and that's when we beat them 50-35, and we put up some pretty good numbers that day.
Pretty good is right.
Yeah,
713 yards in the air. Oh
yeah,
my God. How, like,
yeah.
what happened that night? Just because everything was clicking for you.
Well, and we should have had 850. Just put that out there, okay? We should have had 850. I missed a couple guys, a couple balls on the ground, but that happens. But I told you about '93 and beating Edmonton. Well, we
Hmm.
beat Edmonton handily in those two regular season games with our inside receivers, Gerald Wilcox and Gerald Alford. They had like 43 catches for almost 500 yards on the inside, right? Just our inside receivers in those two games. I mean,
Hmm.
just think about that. We just light them up with our inside receivers. And so when we saw them in '94 after they beaten us in the Grey Cup, they were bound and determined not to get beaten by inside receivers. And so we said, okay, you're going to take that away. We'll just push the ball outside. And that's when Alfred Jackson had 7 catches for 308, 4 touchdowns. David Williams had 10 catches for 240 and a touch. And so it was like pick your poison. And it was just good to spit that out of our mouths at that point and get it, right the ship, so to speak, and get our season going in the right direction because we had faltered out of the gate. I think in '94, I think we were 500 at that point and had lost a couple games that we thought we should have won, and we needed a big one, and that kind of set us off. So that was good,
You were
real good.
also you were also an amazing scrambling quarterback too. It's not really something that we see anymore. Do you think your style also kind of attributed a bit to those injuries, like the broken collarbone and the Achilles, just because you played that tough, hard-nosed football?
Yeah, yeah, those weren't on runs. Both time I broke my collarbone in '91. It was a busted protection up front, right tackle, and I get blindsided, by a Hall of Famer and Johnson, defensive end for John. What's his first name? Um, he's a Hall of Famer, rush end for Calgary.
Alondra
Um,
Johnson?
no, he was a linebacker. This is a defensive end.
Mm.
Anyway, it'll come to me. I break it there, and then the other time it was it hit after I had thrown the ball. So it was just the way the game's played. It's different now, right? It's you can't even touch a quarterback, breathe on them. Yeah, I played like I knew how to play. Again, going back to Bay Village, Ohio, growing up, front yard playing. Whether it was Oakley or Matt Stender or DePero or the boys. It was just
Hmm.
we just always trying to one up each other and man up, and it was just playing a game. There's an inch to be gained, gain it. There ain't no business decision running out of bounds or sliding. It was like initiate contact, run through. I'm not running to be tackled.
Hmm.
I'm running for yards and to move the sticks and to put the ball in the end zone. I thought that was the point of the game.
Yeah.
But anyways, that mentality is few and far between. That's why I like watching. You know, I got a lot of time for uh, some of the quarterbacks that are still in the game today.
Hmm.
I think Cody Fajardo is that way. Certainly, Chris Streveler, he
Yeah.
reminds me of, he's a hard nosed guy, but he's got to figure out the passing aspects of this. But
Matthew Schultz as
um,
well is very much like that.
yeah, yeah, still lets it eat. There's a handful of guys that I think bring that to the table. Um, the kid from Tampa Bay,
Baker Mayfield?
quarterback, Baker Mayfield's that way,
Hmm.
and so there's some guys out there that still see it and play it the way I think it's supposed to be played. But I understand, there's a lot, you can play a long time, if you choose to play it that way. I played 14 years the way I did.
Yeah.
It was good enough for me.
What
But
What was it like down in Birmingham when you went down there? Because there was that American
Yeah,
expansion back then at that time, right
yeah,
after when you left
yeah,
Winnipeg. What was, as
yeah.
a player during that time with an American expansion into the Canadian game, what was it like in Birmingham with the Barracudas?
It was incredible. It was an incredible experience. I was pride. I was full of pride. Take the Canadian game, a game I didn't know anything about, um, and to take it down there, 13 years after, I started up there, it was like, yeah, I'm gonna blow these people's minds. We're gonna light it up. We're gonna set this place on fire. And yeah, I think we pretty much did. We were a really good football team in a hurry. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we had we went 10-8 that year. Um, I missed 4 games due to a broken hand in my throwing hand twice. I missed the first 2 games and the last 2 games because I broke my hand on the same throwing hand, and I think our record could have been better if I hadn't have done that. But we had incredible experience down there. Loved playing at Legion Field, introducing the Canadian game to CFL fans,
Mm-hmm.
up close and personal. Um, yeah, it was my wife and I loved Birmingham. Kathy and I just absolutely, fell in love with the city, and we loved showcasing what the CFL was all about. 93, 4, and 5, and I got there in 95, and unfortunately, everything shut down after that 95 season, and that chapter turned the page quickly. It was tough because I really thought that we had a great product. I'm a big believer. It's a better product. It's a better game
Mm-hmm.
than the National Football League.
I
And
agree.
um, as much money? No. Do we have much people to draw from and invested in the game? No. Because it's a relative thing. At the end of the day, it's a better game, and
Mm-hmm.
I was happy to introduce it and to carry the torch. For however long. It was just too sad. It was only for basically a year.
Yeah. When so after Birmingham, I mean, you come Canada gets you back. You go up to Hamilton. You get your 100th win as a quarterback. But then in February '97, you decided that that was enough. What went into the process
Uh,
to finally be
uh,
like, you know what, I'm good.
yeah, well, we were 4-1 at the time in Hamilton when my career came to an end.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I ended up with I think it was 102 or 103 career wins, and since I retired, somehow miraculously, I've lost a couple of wins here over the time, and I think statisticians going back and I don't know doing whatever they do, but it's 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 a bone of contention for me because those wins are not easy to come by.
Hmm.
But I was 4-1 as a starter with Hamilton, and we had a great caliber football team. We had all the pieces and to win it that year. But yeah, I left the game week 6 at home, and I win after a series of plays. I've been concussed, and my head hit the turf like 5 times in a matter of 4 plays,
Oof.
and and yeah, and every time it was just driving the nail deeper into the coffin, and I felt
Hmm.
like my armor was split, and I was exposed for the first time as a football player ever since Beverly, Ohio, playing killing
Hmm.
out the ball in the front yard. I felt different. Never felt that way before, but I knew something was different. Had 6 neurosurgeons tell me that my career was over with, and you know, I it was a lot of seeking answers and trying to understand what was happening,
Hmm.
and not being in the right mindset in order to do that. But I had to lean on Kathy and but once the letters and the determinations started coming in uh, from the Mayo Clinic to all the neurosurgeons I saw and all the tests, it was they're only confirming what I already knew in my heart on that field. Brian Walling was was my teammate, one of my teammates at the time, and he's the one that picked me off and walked me off the field for the last time. And it was uh, it was a shitty way to go out. And I didn't waste much time. I went back to Birmingham, where he had a home, and my good friend Mike Kelly had taken a job at Valdosta State and asked me if I wanted to move on and turn the page and start a coaching career. So I went down there and I was the offensive coordinator, quarterback, receiver coach, and academic advisor, and also the pro liaison. Division II football, you wear a lot of hats, and so
Yeah.
I just we moved our family to Valdosta, Georgia, and uh, and we were there from '97 through 2003, almost into 2004. It's a great city, and just said next to the next chapter, which was coaching. I coached there 2 years, and I hung that up for a number of reasons, and then started my TSN career for 5 years. And Chris Schultz had phoned me and said, "Matty, they're interviewing for, I think, something that you'd like to do, man, is be good at." And he says, "You can throw your hat in the ring." I asked Schultz a few questions, and I flew up there and interviewed and started my broadcasting career, which is now 25 years long.
It it actually might be one of my I loved watching you on the field. I have a story at the end of this about you when I was a kid on the
Oh,
field, but I
yeah.
love watching you every week on the panel. I love listening to the games that you call when you're actually in the
Oh, good.
booth. I feel like, yeah, it was an amazing transition for you. And you get to see how the game's evolving from when you played to today. But one of the other things that happened in that I just want to touch on really quickly was the Hall came calling in 2006,
Oh,
which was completely
yeah.
well deserved.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that happened. How did you
Yeah.
find out about your induction, and how does it feel to be recognized as
Yeah.
one of the greatest of all time?
Yeah. Um, well, it was 10 years after I retired,
Yeah.
and so you're not thinking about it, right? You're just into other things, and you're um head down, living life, trying to raise a family. And yeah, it was. Hey, Kath, do you remember who phoned me for the Hall of Fame induction? Kathy? What's that? No. Okay. Yeah. Like I said, a lot of my memories that Etch a Sketch KP right on right out of my brain. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
remember the old Etch a Sketches?
yeah,
You
yeah.
draw it, you move the little, and then wheels, and then you just pick it up and
You
you
shake
shake it.
it.
That's what happened to my brain. Yeah. What you say, Kath? No, no. Thank you, babe. Kathy, she's my vault, and she's really good with that. And
Yeah.
she can't remember, but I almost want to say it was somebody from the hall and the selection committee.
Okay.
Um, but it was one of those times and one of those calls that obviously I forgot, but you should never forget. But it's yeah, it's indicative of the guy you're talking to. So, but I do remember meeting Jim Taylor. May he rest in peace, the great sports writer that helped me pen my Going Deep book, in Life and Times and CFL
Mm.
quarterback. And I saw
M-
Jim at the
Mine gets,
ceremony.
sorry, really quickly, mine actually gets delivered tomorrow. I found one and I found
Oh,
it on
wow.
eBay, a hardcover, and it gets delivered tomorrow. Sorry, continue.
Oh, wow. Excellent, man. Well, if I got a job next year, and I'm up there, and we cross paths, I'd be happy to sit down with you, have a beer, and shoot the shit even some
Please
more. But
do.
at the end of the day, I remember seeing Jim, and he got on the elevator, and he said hello, and I said hey, and I said congratulations, and he said on what? I said you're writing my book, and you're gonna help me. You're gonna co-author this thing, and we and that started the trek in order to get down what I felt like was a pretty good description and insight as to the life and times of the CFL quarterback. And Jim was like no other. And I call him Jigsaw because he piecemeals stuff together and he piecemealed my career together I anticipated he would. And he helped me. Um, and to this day, I deal with post concussion syndrome and symptoms and
Mm-hmm.
have good days and bad, like anybody. But
Mm-hmm.
mine's been magnified due to the residual effects. But
Mm-hmm.
it was a difficult time, and trying to extract and regurgitate the information that was scrambled in my brain. And Jim really helped me get that out. And it was a blessing. So that 2006 induction into the hall, um, was just yeah, I was really tickled who I went in with too. It
Mm-hmm.
was a special group of people. I bought them all watches, really nice watches with an engraved 2006 induction class, and so we all have a bond, um, uh, and share that forever. And I bought them for family members as well, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, and my wife and my in-laws and my parents. So, just to kind of commemorate and to bring us closer together and have something to kind of bring you, and have you always tied in to one another. And yeah, and so that's with Victor and Bobby and Gizmo and Alan,
Mm-hmm.
myself. And it's a good group, really good group.
You mentioned the TSN panel, so let's just jump on to today. You work with a great bunch of people every single week. There's Davis Sanchez, there's Milt Stiegel, of course yourself, Kate Bearness, and then there's also Coach Lapo. We see Jim Barker here and there. What's it like going to work there every week and being able to put your knowledge out to the public and kind of explain? Because the way that you explain the game to a lot of people, it makes sense the way, and you speak it and it's just everybody understands what you mean and they can see what you're talking about. So
Yeah,
what's it like going there every week and going to work with those people?
yeah. Playing's the best, right?
Yeah.
Playing is the best. Coaching is second best, and then broadcasting is third best, right? So, it's pretty much the hierarchy and I've been able to do all three for the last 25 years. I've been able to broadcast, and AP. I still tell people, and you know, jokingly and uh, lightheartedly, say I still don't know what the heck I'm doing. I just respect the game. I understand it. I played it for 14 years. I had six different um, offensive coordinators over the course of my career and professionally. I learned from a lot of different people and great minds. I coached it, offensive coordinated it, and I, I took the CFL and all the six different offenses that I knew of and combined them into one American style offense. Coached that for 2 years down here, and I just love the game. I love the X's and O's of it. I don't think I get enough opportunity on our show to talk about those things.
Hmm.
I think they push that to other staff on our crew, like Lapo or Jim, because they're considered head coaches. Although I was a head coach, GM, and an offensive coordinator in this league in 2004,
You were.
but that time in Calgary was such a tainted time because of the ownership. I think it really altered a lot of people's opinions as to my abilities on understanding the game. But that's their problem, not mine, because
Hmm.
I understand. I've forgotten more football than most will ever know, and I just think that that's an aspect that I enjoy. I respect the game, and so what I've tried to do is come prepared to pick up any scraps or and pick up on anything that anybody wants to talk about when you show up to work every day, and just being prepared, right? And
Hmm.
so I think that's what I've been able to bring to the table for the last quarter of a century, and I pride myself in that because that's just love of the game, and it's driven by passion, and I always tell people, and hopefully you'll be able to understand this. Um, you come prepared, and you understand defense, offense, special teams in its entirety, and what people and teams are trying to do and get accomplished, and how they can do it, what their tendencies are, and up and down the football field, and the left hash, middle hash, right hash, and different field zones, down the distance, time of the game, all the different aspects and nuances that football brings to the table. You understand that in its entirety. You prepare yourself and the teams, the coaches, the players, and the history, and then they write the story. And then our job is simple. You just tell it. They're writing it. You
Mm-hmm.
tell it. You tell people what you're looking at, and that's as simple and as perfectly as I can describe what I do. Is they write it and we tell it, and you come prepared and you're passionate about it. You know what you're talking about. Hopefully, you'll be able to to display it in a way where people will enjoy it and feel comfortable about it. And the trick is, Glenn Suter, my God, Glenn's been doing color, for longer than I have. He's been doing it, I think, closing in on 27, 28 years, I think, maybe even 30. He just got inducted in the Writers Hall of Fame, or Sports Broadcasters Hall of Fame, the
Mm-hmm.
CFL,
Mm-hmm.
National Football League, excuse me. And to me, that's a big honor. We got a lot of guys on our staff that are in that. I'm talking about Farhan just went in
Yes.
this year. John Hines, our producer, who went in the year before. It's just we've got so many talented people that are as passionate and knowledgeable, and are historians and are like savants when it comes to the CFL. When you show up to work and you're involved with people like that, you get a lot of encouragement and information and passion and love and like-mindedness going on, and so it creates a great environment. It really does. And so it's I think it's driven by passion, and to do it repeatedly over the years, and Suits is closing in on three
Mm-hmm.
decades, and I think he's the best at what he does. And I love listening to Dwayne Ford. I think Ford, brings a completely different style, and it's just amazing. And then, you know, um, whatever I do, I don't know. And I'm happy to get 11, 12 kicks the can a year to do that. And, the rest of the time's in the studio. But it's been a great run, filled by passion, and to work alongside uh, some Hall of Fame play-by-play guys. It's been incredible. And I'm going back to Wellesley, John Wells. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going back to, Gordon Miller, Chris Cuthbert, and the
Yes.
guys we have on board right now, like Marshall Ferguson, savant. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Dustin Nielsen, savant. It's Rod Smith. Come on, he's the voice of God. He's the
Yes,
voice
he
of
is.
Rod. He's the voice of football. The guy is a vault. We have got Hall of Famers everywhere in that organization, and it really fuels your passion for what you do, because you're surrounded by excellence, really.
If Canada had a Hard Knocks, it would be Rod Smith. He would be the voice of God, just like Liev Schreiber is on Hard Knocks.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. He's incredible at what he does, and I'm just not throwing out compliments. I'm being real about
Yeah.
everything that I'm saying here about Nielsen and Ferguson and Miller
Mm-hmm.
and Rod and CC, it's just these guys are savants. It's the best word I can use to describe it. They're And then you've got producers and directors behind the scenes that know it, if not as much, if not better, than everybody that's in front of the camera. It's yeah. There's a lot of wealth of knowledge there and ability, and it really stokes your fire to bring it every time. And we don't have a big group, at TSN. It's a group that's worked hard, both cameramen, sound, lighting, all the people that, take our product from stadium to stadium. They're just not doing CFL. They're doing NHL. They're
Mm-hmm.
doing curling. They're doing all kinds of basketball. They're doing all kinds of stuff, man. And these people never miss a beat. And from top to bottom, we're quality. And it's a small group of people that make magic. And I've just been blessed to be a part of it.
You mentioned, the wealth of knowledge, and I'm gonna use that right now. So we look at the game today, especially in the last couple of weeks. We've seen a ton of operational changes, and then we've
Yeah.
also seen a lot of quarterback changes, right? Like VA gets traded to Calgary,
Yeah.
Edmonton makes Trey Ford the guy. Davis
Yeah.
Alexander is now in Montreal, and no, Cody
Yeah.
Fajardo does not have a job. But let's still not sleep on Bo Levi Mitchell. What do you think? So far, what do you think has the biggest impact, and what do you think is going to come out of when free agency opens with all of these changes that have happened lately?
Well, we haven't even hit free agency, right?
Right, that's what
You
I'm
know,
saying.
and there's been change. We knew change was coming at Edmonton,
Hmm.
uh, and it's I'm glad that they're restructured and that they have um, a new direction. I think Trey um, deserves a chance. It's they haven't named an OC there yet, have they?
No.
The JC Sherritt is going to be the defensive coordinator, I believe, and Killam is the new head coach. But I don't think they've named an OC yet, and that's going to be interesting. Is that going to be Jordan McSimic?
It's
Is
the
he coming
rumor.
back? Is he coming back to Edmonton?
That's the
And if
rumor.
that's the case, listen what I'm gonna say here. If that's the case, that's going to shake things up because that's going to leave um, uh, a void in BC.
Hmm.
And when you got Rourke, and the reason that he came back was because of McSimic to BC, and that style of offense is completely different than what a lot of other people are doing in the Canadian Football League. And if you talk, and I have, I've talked to a lot of quarterbacks over the last 25 years, as a broadcaster, and played it for 14, coached it for 3. And I asked them specific questions to extract certain information so I can get a beat on where their mindset is, what their capabilities are mentally, their approach to the game, how they see it, just give me, take me through a progression, take me through a play call, what you're looking at, and you're seeing the defensive front, inside out. Are you doing it from top to bottom? What's your first indicator? What are your reads? What's your thought process and the play called? Why are you moving the team this way? Why are you formation them and with motion? What are you looking for? How are you connecting the dots and where you go in football once the ball's in your hands? How much time do you have on the clock? What's a down and distance situation? What's the score? Where you're at. You got to digest all these things. And Jordan, he does it differently there as far as progressions and how they go about doing things. And I found that out. And just talking to Nate, and I turned my head sideways, and it's like interesting. And he says, "I don't have time for that. I just have to go through my progressions, and get the ball out." And well, people catch up to progressions, and
Mm.
we got great defensive coordinators that give you one thing, leading you to another progression, and taking away. And before you know it, that defense is on your ass, and the ball's still in your hand, or you're forcing it, or you're throwing it under duress, and now it's going the other way. We saw a bit of that this year, right?
Yep.
And so I think if Jordan happens to go to Edmonton, I think that could be real interesting to see what happens in BC and Nathan Rourke, and how he continues to handle things and settles in as being a guy there. I think that could really cause some waves. What's going to happen with Vernon and Calgary
Hmm.
is interesting, right? And who's going to be the guy behind him? Because VA is having problems staying healthy. And he missed a chunk of games this year. Look what's going on in Winnipeg. Zach, the same type of thing. They had nobody to go to when he went down in that Grey Cup. And Toronto completely outplayed the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and it wasn't even close. That score was flattering, but you got to have it. You got to have two, in my opinion. And Jarrett Davey is the guy behind Trey Ford in Edmonton. And they don't have much depth there because everybody else is going to be free agent and not signed. You look at what's going on in Saskatchewan. They just signed Trevor to another year. He's going to be 39 before the season starts. And we know that he's been having problems staying healthy. But when he's healthy, I think he's the best pure pocket passer we have in the Canadian Football League, and he doesn't even have an arm.
Right.
And you got Shea Patterson backing him up, but I think we're in good shape with quarterbacks. Certainly out west, I think we're in good shape. But I think there's some real interesting things going on, and it could change in a hurry as the season gets underway. And we still have many more changes to happen before it even starts. And then you go out east, and what's going on in Toronto, the Grey Cup champions, with their MOP over there, Nick Arbuckle, and it's just, is he the guy? Do people have enough belief in him to be the guy? Has he shown that over the years? No, he hasn't. But what he did do is he showed an affinity and an understanding of Ryan Dinwiddie offense in that football game to get the things done the way he needed to in that football game at the end of the season last year. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. And it was a great story. And that's what football's made of, resilience, getting up off the mat, believing in yourself, raising the family away from the game, just trusting it, making all those things happen, and going out there and delivering. And that kid did it. So he's earned an opportunity, behind Kelly, and maybe even being a guy, if they don't see a fit there. You mentioned Bo in a comment with this question, and what's going to happen with him, because he really settled in after getting benched, early midway through last season. And then as things have it, he's thrown right back in the mix, and he finds his footing. And Scott Milojevic basically taught an old dog new tricks, and it was a thing of beauty, and he was arguably the best guy down the stretch.
Yeah.
Now they just got a new defensive coordinator and Brett Monson from Calgary, and that could change some things and make him even better. But what's going to happen to Chris Jones? Where's he at? In that situation. Look what's going on in Ottawa. They just got a new DC there in William Fields. And that's going to change things. The young kid had a tremendous year there behind the center last year, and I really believe that Drew is going to pick up where he left off. He had an exceptional rookie season being the guy. Learned a lot of tricks under Zach in his time in Winnipeg, and so he played like a veteran, not a rookie last year. I expect him to even be better. Montreal. You mentioned Davis Alexander. That to me is intriguing because this guy looks the part. He plays the game that I'm used to. He puts his head down and go gets it, and so I've got an affinity for that kid, and I like what he does. But for them to move on, that's some big balls by Danny Machocha. That is huge. That is huge for them to move on from Cody and say that and say moving forward, Davis is our guy. And this is the MOP from 2 years ago in the Grey Cup, and that's crazy how quickly things can CFL for you. And to me, we're just tip of the iceberg. We're not even in January, and there's so many juicy storylines and movement going on. Free agency hasn't even hit, and it's just it's upon us, baby. And it's what we do. AP, it's what we love to do.
Yeah. And there's still a lot of guys out there that, Jeremiah Masoli, he wants to play still, and I want to see him back on the field. Cody Fajardo doesn't have a job right now. Jake Mayer is still one of those questions that,
MBT.
Whereas
McLeod Bethel
McLeod
Thompson.
Bethel Thompson's another one
Yeah,
that, who
yeah,
knows?
yeah,
Is Dustin Crum gonna get more of an opportunity in Ottawa? Like
yeah,
our league right now is so stacked at quarterback, and now it's overflowing, which
yeah,
is insane to think about.
yeah, yeah. And there's a good mix of young talent moving forward, and experienced veterans that are looking for a place, and maybe some restructured contracts. Going back to BC. And Buck Pierce getting the head coaching job there, right? Buck deserves that opportunity. And is he going to take over that offense? Is he going to have the same success he had with Zach in Winnipeg and BC? Is that going to free up Jordan to go to Edmonton? To me, there's there's a lot of good stuff happening, man. It's juicy, and it's fun to talk about.
Before I let you go tonight, I just have one quick story here that I wanted to share with you. So I was a kid, probably around 9 years old, and you had
Okay.
just signed in Winnipeg. The Bombers hold their yearly fan fest. I can't remember what exactly it was called, but you were there, and you were the guy, big line around you, everyone's going insane. So my mom takes me to this. And I'm next in line to see you. And I'm 9 years old. So this big guy, he may not have been big, but to me, he was huge, steps in front of me, and you put
Yeah.
your hand out to him and you're like, no, kids first. And then you knelt down and you signed something for me.
Oh,
That
wow.
stuck with me through my entire
Nice.
life, even to now.
Nice.
I
Nice.
I started following you from like that point on. Like I remember the Toronto
Yeah.
team, but that was where I was like, oh, Matt Dunigan's my favorite player of all time. I
Okay.
started playing quarterback in Bantam in high school because of that. I know it sounds really cheesy and corny, but
Yeah.
you had such an
Hey.
impact on my football life that
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for
Yeah.
everything that you've done
Yeah.
for me. I know you've never met me besides that one time when I was 9 years old, but you
Yeah.
had such an impact on my
Mm.
football life that
Cool.
you being here tonight on my podcast just means the world to me. And I just wanted to say
Yeah,
thank you.
AP, I appreciate you sharing that story. It's what makes the world go round. And I have a similar one with Roger Staubach. I'm in the seventh grade. Um, I'm playing at Forest Meadows Junior High in Dallas, Texas. Told you I grew up 2.5 blocks away from the Cowboys practice field. And they had open practices just about every week. And I was attending one of those. And after practice, I jumped in front of Mr. Staubach. And I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Staubach. My name's Matt Dunigan, quarterback at Forest Meadows Junior High. I'm just wondering if you can give me some tips on how to become a better one." And he pulled me aside, put his hand on my shoulder, pulled me aside, and said, "Son, do you have a football?" I said, "Oh, yes, sir, I got a football." He says, "Well," and he gave me the next words out of his mouth were the most profound words I think I ever heard and influenced me. And it's not rocket science. He said, "Well, you need to throw the ball, and throw the ball." And I'm thinking, wow, why did I think of that? But coming from Roger, it inspired me just to throw the ball more than I was already. And believe me, I was doing a lot of it, right? Repetition. And that's what he's getting time with me. And AP, I'm glad I took the time with you back then because it's a reflection of Roger's moment with me. And it always affected me the same way that I affected you, hopefully. And
Mhm.
it made an indelible mark on a young kid, and it took very little effort. And but yet it was meant so much to me, and I've always taken that mentality ever since then. Ever since I was in a position to influence, I wanted to influence in a positive way. And to me, that's all that was a bit of Roger, influence on me coming out on you back in '92.
Thank you. I can't say it enough. Thank you for what you did.
Yeah, man, my pleasure.
And thank you also for coming on and joining me for my 100th episode.
Oh, dude, hey, I was excited to hear about that, and my pleasure, AP. Let's do it again sometime.